The first time Ethan Walker saw Olivia Carter, she was framed by the harsh white glare of a crosswalk heels, halted mid-step, pupils pinning to something only she could hear, a low, insect hum of an engine cutting against the city's noise. He felt it before he saw it. The wrongness, the hair-prick static that meant trouble, was finding a face. A black sedan glided against the light like a knife ignoring a recipe. Unbothered by rules or red, Lily's hand was in his, small and warm and 8 years old, and he should have squeezed tighter. Should have kept walking. Instead, Ethan moved, an old instinct throwing him forward. He caught the CEO of Carter Dynamics around the shoulders and yanked, their bodies skidding across the paint as the sedan's bumper kissed the space where she'd been, then vanished into traffic like a swallowed secret. Olivia stared at him, fury and shock braided together, and said the first thing that didn't fit the moment at all. "Don't tell." Ethan Walker didn't plan to make a habit of saving strangers. He was a single dad with a toolbox and a calendar full of jobs no one noticed unless the lights stopped working. That morning, he'd only planned to walk Lily to her school and then head to a warehouse retrofit where the breaker panel was older than most rock bands. But the city had a way of stepping sideways. One minute, you were lecturing your kid about looking both ways. The next, you were dragging a woman in a charcoal suit out of a car's path and rolling to a stop against the heat-scuffed curb. "Are you hurt?" he asked, breath burning his throat. Olivia Carter sat up, cool suit dusted with grit. She was the kind of woman the news used as a shorthand for ambition. Straight dark hair, clean lines, a posture that made other people straighten theirs. Close up, the invincible mask had a hairline crack, panic trying not to be seen. "I'm fine," she said automatically, and then she realized what he'd done. "You..." A muscle jumped in her cheek. "Thank you." From behind Ethan, Lily whispered, "Dad." Her voice was small, wary. She'd seen enough loud, ugly moments since her mother died to know when grown-ups were pretending. The black sedan was already folding into city traffic, tinted glass reflecting nothing. The light changed. Horns scolded. People streamed around them, 100 strangers whose lives had just missed colliding. Ethan stood, offering Olivia a hand. She ignored it long enough to prove she could, then took it, and he hauled her to her feet in one smooth pull. That was when the leather folio tucked under her arm slipped, hit the pavement, popped open. A wedge of paper skated out, caught, and flipped, flashing a corner of something stamped with a seal. He didn't mean to read it. He was already bending for the folio, for the simple reason that you always returned what people dropped. But the paper spun like a coin and caught the light. Carter Dynamics Internal Transfer Ledger. Q4. And beneath, 3 letters printed small enough to hide in a margin, bold enough to ring like a bell in anyone who watched the news. He passed the folio back. Their fingers grazed, a tiny static snap. Olivia's pupils tightened. Her voice dropped to a register that recognized risk. "Don't tell," she said. "Not please. Not a question. A directive." Ethan bristled the way you do when strangers try to rent your morality for free. "Lady, I just pulled you out of traffic. I wasn't planning to tweet your paperwork." Something unclenched in her face. Not relief. Exactly, something like recalculation. "Right," she said. "Right." Horns spattered again. A bus exhaled diesel. Somewhere a bike bell dinged like punctuation. Olivia looked past him the way hunted animals look through you. "I have to go." "Miss Carter?" The new voice was too bright, like a stage light. 2 men had materialized near the curb. Suits that fit the way knives fit sheaths. The shorter one held out a phone. "Could we get a comment?" There was a tip. The longer one just watched. Eyes the blue of freezer ice. Olivia's spine went rigid. No comment. She stepped around Ethan, heel biting the crosswalk. The shorter man angled the phone anyway. Ethan moved without thinking. "Hey." She said no. He put his body between Olivia and the phone, like he'd done at 1,000 job sites when a forklift drifted too close to an apprentice. The phone retracted. The smile stayed. "And you are?" "Late," Ethan said, because he was. He took Lily's hand, warm and real, and guided her around the cluster. "Come on, Bug." Olivia didn't thank him the second time. She just slid away into the current of pedestrians and was gone, like the city had closed over her. Lily looked back once. "Dad," she said. "Were those the bad guys or the news guys?" Ethan watched the suits in the glass of a storefront as they drifted the other direction, matching shadows, not news at all. "I don't know yet, Lil," he said. "But we're not going to be here to find out." By noon, he'd blown out the dust in the warehouse panel and coaxed the old metal into the present tense. He ate a sandwich that tasted like the inside of its own wrapper and tried not to replay the moment the sedan's bumper had passed through a space where a person had been. It wasn't like the night with Amber Lily's mother when an accident had slammed time into a wall and nothing got up after. But adrenaline knew one story and believed it every time. He was coiling Romex when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. It rang again. He thumbed it open, more annoyed than curious. Walker. Silence, then the voice from the crosswalk, clipped and controlled, and slightly frayed at the edges. "Mr. Walker. This is Olivia Carter." He propped the phone against his shoulder and kept his hands working, because stopping would let the emotions catch up. "You're welcome," he said. "I didn't call to well. I should say thank you properly. But I'm calling because—" She swallowed a word, chose a different one. "Because today wasn't random. And you saw something you shouldn't have. I saw a car run a red. Which, not exactly headline material. You saw my documents. I saw paper, and the men. They're not press. A beat. You have a child." Every muscle in him stiffened at the shift. "We're done here," he said. "Lose this number." "I'm trying to keep you and your daughter off a list," Olivia snapped, control fracturing for the first time. "If the men from this morning think you can hurt them, they'll try to hurt you first." Ethan heard the truth in it. He also heard the part of himself that didn't ever take orders from strangers. "What do you want?" "To meet," she said. "Somewhere with cameras, somewhere normal." "Tell me where and when." He should have said no. He should have blocked the number and finished his day and made dinner and watched Lily draw horses that looked like clouds with legs. Instead, he named a coffee shop with a bell on the door and a barista who had once wrestled a would-be robber with a pastry tray. He picked a table facing the room, because he always did. Olivia arrived with her coat buttoned like armor. Even dressed down, she radiated the kind of gravity that bent other people's trajectories. She sat without fidgeting. Up close, there was a shadow under one eye that hadn't been on the magazine covers. "Mr. Walker, Ethan," she said carefully, like the word had a hidden clause. "I need to explain something in the smallest number of words that still make sense." He nodded at her folio. "Does it involve those?" "It does." She set the folio on the table and placed her palm on it, like a spell. 3 months ago, I signed a series of approvals tied to an overseas expansion, logistics hubs, supply chain smoothing, the kind of investment that puts 10,000 people in work shirts. The numbers were clean, the audits matched. Last week, an analyst flagged a misalignment. Not huge, but not nothing. The kind of thing that suggests something is being moved where eyes aren't. "Money," Ethan said. "Money," she agreed. "And leverage. And influence. The sort of currents that don't ask permission." She took a breath. "I started digging. I found this." She tapped the folio. "If I report it badly, I blow up my company and the lives that depend on it. If I don't report it, I'm an accessory. If I report it cleanly," she laughed without humor, "I could still blow up my company, and if the people who are moving things decide I'm in the way, they send a car through a red light." Ethan finished. "They send questions with smiles," she said. "They send men with cold eyes." "Why me?" "Because you're in it now," Olivia said simply. "You saw them targeting me, and you saw they aren't afraid of daylight." She glanced toward the window at the street, at the unremarkable afternoon scudding along like a sheepish dog. Because this morning, when you moved, your first flinch was toward someone else. People like that are either the safest people to be near or the most dangerous. I'm betting on the first one. You're betting with my kid's safety. Something complicated crossed her face. I know. Ethan pushed back from the table, anger flaring. Then the conversation's over. Olivia didn't reach for him. She reached into the folio and slid a sheet across the table. A photocopy, grainy, full of numbers and codes that meant nothing to strangers. I don't need you to be a hero, she said quietly. I need a witness. If I disappear, someone who can say what he saw. Someone who can hand this to the right hands without getting spooked by the first door that slams. Ethan stared at the sheet, not reading numbers, seeing only the shape of risk. The right hands meaning? Federal. Clean ones. You don't know me, but I know my own halls. If I walk this to the wrong person internally, it never walks anywhere again. Why would your own people? Because power is a lake that grows things, she said. Some of them are not fish. He thought of Lily's freckles, scattered like a constellation across her nose the last time they'd gone to the beach. He thought of Amber's laugh on a night they'd burned pancakes just to make new ones. He thought of the black sedan's unhurried glide. One meeting, he said. You bring me a name. We go together. If anything smells off, I walk. Agreed, Olivia said. And you leave my daughter out of your mouth. Agreed, she said again. The bell on the door chimed. Both their heads lifted like deer. It was only a college kid with a backpack. Olivia exhaled. Tomorrow, she said. 11. I'll text you an address. You text me a name. Ethan countered. We meet at a public place. Then, we go to the address. She smiled for the first time, small and sharp. You're not as agreeable as you look. That's probably why I'm still alive. The name arrived that night, stripped of flourish. Saul Jacobs, FBI Financial Crimes, Field. A second text followed. Do not search him. They will know. Ethan almost laughed. He was a man who once took a whole day to pick a toaster. He did his own searching slowly, in the way of cautious people. He asked Jake. Jake Rizzo lived 3 doors down. Retirement perched on him like a soft old cat. He'd been a cop long enough to see the trick where you hide the rotten apple under the other apples and call it a good barrel. He met Ethan on the front stoop with 2 coffees and a look that always held a weather report. Saul Jacobs. Jake said after listening, chewing the name like a seed. Straight arrow. Last I knew. Ticks off the wrong bosses, but doesn't care. If he's still where I think he is, he's clean enough to eat off. I don't like the way she said don't search him, Ethan admitted. Means the people watching her watch her phone, and the people watching them watch the searches. She's not wrong. How involved you planning on getting, kid? Ethan looked through Jake's screen door to where Lily's backpack hung on a chair, and a pair of tiny sneakers lay on their sides like commas. He wanted to say not at all. He said, as involved as it takes to get us not on a list. Jake's eyebrows acknowledged the paradox. I'll be around tomorrow morning. If your gut gets itchy, call me. If it gets real itchy, run. Copy that. Bring me a cinnamon roll, Jake added, because the world is stitched with ordinary appetites even where the fabric is thin. The next day, the city pretended it had never tried to hurt anyone. The sky was a soft, tired blue. Ethan dropped Lily at school, kissed the top of her head, and told her the thing he always told her. Make good trouble and be kind. She rolled her eyes because she was 8 and because rituals require resistance. He met Olivia on a bench, outside a library built like a ship. She wore sunglasses that turned the morning into a mirror. You ready? She asked. No, he said. But I'm here. They walked. Not toward any federal building. Olivia cut a path through a block of stores, took a right, then a left. The way people do when they are either lost or looking to shake a tail. They stopped at a brick facade with a brass plaque that said nothing obvious. Olivia pressed a buzzer, looked into a camera, and said, Delivery. The door thunked. Inside, the air smelled like paper and lemon. A woman at a desk checked them in with eyes that did arithmetic. Down a hall, up 2 flights, through a door with a simple sign. Conference B. Saul Jacobs looked more like a math teacher than a federal agent. He had the rumpled competence of someone who understood systems and lost pens. He shook Ethan's hand like he meant it, and took in Olivia with an expression that could have been patience or admiration. "Miss Carter," he said, "you've made friends." "Witnesses," Olivia corrected. "She. Saturday." "Ethan. Saturday." The chair was harder than it looked. Jacobs folded his hands. "You told me on the phone you didn't want to put this in email." "You were right. Tell me," Olivia told him. "Not all of it, that would take days, but enough. Shell companies with names that sounded like retirement villages. Transfers that skimmed a fraction so small you could pass it off as rounding until the total made a cathedral. Approvals that had been clean until someone swapped a link in a chain, and her discovery, and the car, and the men. Jacobs didn't write much. He didn't interrupt. When he did speak, it was to ask questions that touched weak joints in stories. He nodded at Ethan occasionally. Not because he needed him there, but because he didn't mind him being there. When Olivia slid the folio across, Jacobs didn't pounce. He opened it like a book you borrowed from a friend. He scanned, stopped, and did something Ethan recognized from the job site, the moment when your eyes recognize a problem your mouth hasn't named yet. "You understand what this is," Jacobs said finally. "It's rot," Olivia said. "Cabled through my company into places that chew up countries. It's also a noose," he said, "for whoever is standing nearest when the trapdoor fails." Olivia's mouth tilted. "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality," Jacobs said. "If I move on this wrong, you're the headline, and your people are out of work. If I move on it right, you still might be the headline, but you'll have a job to come back to, and a company worth the name." "And if you don't move at all?" Ethan asked, tired of the careful dance. Jacobs looked at him properly then, the way men who handle consequences look at other men who have carried sleeping children upstairs. "Then the men who sent that car become your problem instead of mine. I don't let that happen when I can help it." He closed the folio. "I move careful," he said, "and I'd ask you both to go home, go quiet, and let me do my job." "Quiet," Olivia repeated, tasting the word like a trick. "That means, don't tell." "In this case," Jacob said, "it means don't get killed." They were on the sidewalk again 10 minutes later, blinking in the friendly noon. Olivia stood very still, like movement might attract attention. "Do you trust him?" she asked, not looking at Ethan. "I trust Jake's red," Ethan said. "And I trust that he didn't try to own us. Men like that always own something," she said. "If not us, then the outcome." "Outcomes beat funerals," Ethan said. She flinched, the smallest sound. "Yes." They walked to the corner, ready to separate. That was when Lily's school called. "Mr. Walker?" The secretary's voice was warm with a worry that hadn't decided how big to be. "We had a gentleman here asking for Lily's dismissal. He had your last name on his tongue, said you'd sent him. We didn't release her, of course, but, well, we thought we should check." Ethan's vision shrank to a straw. "Description," he said, already moving. "Tall? Medium? Eyes? Like freezer ice?" The secretary's pause was answer enough. "We've called the police, but I'm on my way," Ethan said, and hung up. He looked at Olivia, every cell in him bucking toward motion. She met his eyes and nodded once. "Go," she said. "I'll call Jacobs." He ran. The city shoved past. He darted between bodies, across lights, a deer with traffic law. He reached the school breathless and hot, shoulder-checking the door. The principal met him in the foyer with a face that wore professionalism over fear like a thin coat. "She's safe," he said first. "She's in the library. We locked down." "Who was he?" Ethan demanded. "Cameras got him." The principal's jaw set. "Uniforms are looking." Ethan exhaled in a broken piece, and then he was in the library, and Lily was there. Arms like a magnet around his middle. Eyes too wide. "Are we in trouble?" she whispered into his shirt. "Not with me," he said into her hair. "Never with me." He took her home with the kind of non-negotiable adults don't explain. Jake met them there, cinnamon roll forgotten. He scanned the street with old eyes, then the corners of rooms, as if danger preferred shadows. "We're not sleeping here tonight," he announced. "Pack a bag for 2 days. I know a quiet place." Olivia texted as Ethan zipped a duffel with hands that wanted to shake. "Jacobs is on it. Stay away from windows. He's sending a car." "No," Ethan typed. Then deleted the word. "Because sometimes help is a rope, not a chain." "Yes," he wrote. "Text me the plate." When the unmarked sedan showed 20 minutes later, Jake gave it a look like it owed him money. He still ushered Lily into the back. "We're following," he told the driver, a woman with quiet hands. "You get lost, I find you." The safe house was a small apartment over a hardware store that smelled like pine and iron. The blinds were heavy. The beds were clean. Jacobs was waiting, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. He looked like someone who had forgotten to eat lunch on purpose. "Someone poked your hive," he said to Olivia not unkindly. "They don't poke unless they're worried." "They went after my kid," Ethan said. The calm in his voice, the kind that happens after the fire, has already ruined the room. Jacobs's jaw bladed. "Then they're sloppy. Sloppy people make mistakes. We can use that." He checked his phone. "My team's bagging the school footage now. The more they show themselves, the easier this gets." "Show themselves?" Olivia echoed. "They've been operating for months without a ripple." "Fear writes sloppier emails," Jacob said, "and sends cars through reds at lunchtime." Night pressed against the blinds. Lily fell asleep between 2 pillows the size of boats. Ethan sat at the table and stared at the dark, as if it were going to file its taxes. Olivia paced twice, then froze like a statue that had heard a footstep. "I don't want to be brave," she said to the room. "I want to be right." "Those aren't opposites," Jake said from the kitchen, where he was rinsing coffee mugs like a priest polishing chalices. "But they're not twins either." Ethan's phone buzzed the kind of buzz phones do when they carry a stone in their mouth. A number with no name, a text, a grainy photo. Lily's school. The front steps, the man with the freezer blue eyes looking up at the camera and smiling. The caption was only 2 words. "Don't tell." Ethan handed the phone to Jacobs, who absorbed it, jaw tightening. "Good," he said, to Ethan's shock. "Good?" "He stepped in the camera's light," Jacob said. "He thinks he runs the angles. Men who think they run the angles get sloppy. And men who get sloppy get caught." Olivia leaned over the back of a chair, her knuckles white. "And if he doesn't? Then we make him," Jacob said. He tapped his phone. "Tomorrow, we invite Richard Carter to a show." At the name, Olivia's bones hardened. "Leave him to me," she said softly. "Not a chance," Jacobs countered. "But you can be the headline." Olivia laughed, a sound like metal striking metal. "I've been the headline before. I prefer running the printing press." "Tomorrow," Ethan said, "because you have to put a name on the next day so it comes." "Tomorrow," Jacobs agreed. "And until then, don't tell." "Not because they asked. Because we're choosing how this breaks." Morning came in pieces. Coffee. A plan drawn in 3 threads. Olivia would hold a press conference to announce a strategic review that said everything without saying anything. Jacobs would serve sealed warrants the moment the cameras turned. And Ethan's job was simpler, harder. Keep Lily breathing. And be where the camera could see him with a copy of the folio that would go to the internet if the wrong kind of silence fell. They dressed like ordinary people. That was the camouflage. Olivia wore a pale blouse that made her look less like a CEO and more like a person you could disappoint. Ethan wore the one good shirt he kept for weddings and days that asked you to be better than you feel. Lily wore her backpack and a brave face. The press conference was on the 10th floor of Carter Dynamics, a room of glass and city. Cameras bloomed like flowers. Richard Carter arrived late, flanked by men in suits that remembered wars. He smiled the way crocodiles do, like a shrug that got lost. "Olivia," he said, "too loud for family, too soft for friends. I hear you're making a speech." "I am," she said. "You'll like parts of it." Jacobs drifted the edges. Invisible the way men who know how to be visible become when they want to. Jake stood near the back exit, hands in pockets, eyes on hands. Olivia stepped to the podium. The room became a bowl. Sound pooled. "Good morning," she said, and the word good did not apologize. Carter Dynamics was founded on a simple belief. That value is built, not extracted. This week, in alignment with that belief, I initiated a strategic review of our international operations. I will be cooperating fully with federal authorities to ensure our growth is clean and our responsibility intact. Across the room, Richard's smile thinned. "Careful," he murmured, "not to anyone." And, Olivia continued, "I will not be taking questions about operational details, because if someone wanted a spectacle, they picked the wrong stage." The first question still came, because questions are gravity. Olivia met it with a gaze that buckled lesser men and then moved on. The second question was about jobs and the market. She answered with numbers that spoke softly but carried weight. Jacob's phone vibrated. He looked down. Nodded once. His team had their locations, their lines, their signatures. "Mr. Carter?" a reporter called. "Family comment?" Richard's smile performed sorrow. "We support the CEO," he said blandly. He took a step, the kind that suggests owning the floor. "And we will be reviewing our internal." The door opened. Federal jackets darkened the threshold. The room inhaled and did not exhale. "Richard Carter," Jacob said, voice flat as a gavel. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice." Richard blinked, just once. He was very good. He looked at Olivia as if this were a minor annoyance. "Niece," he said, fond as poison. "You'll regret." The rest didn't get out. Hands reached. Cuffs whispered. Cameras feasted. The men with freezer eyes moved, and then there were other hands and other cuffs. It was messy and choreographed, and more truthful than any quarterly report. Ethan didn't realize he'd been holding his breath until Lily's fingers found his, and squeezed. He squeezed back, blood returning to color. Richard's eyes found Ethan as they passed. He smiled again, small and private, and mouthed the same two words. "Don't tell." Ethan looked at Olivia, at Jacobs, at Jake, at Lily, whose chin was high because she was trying on courage like a new coat. "We're done not telling," he said to the air between them. "We're telling the right way." The fallout took weeks, as fallout does. Statements, hearings, markets that moved like cats, sideways and sudden. But the bones held. Carter Dynamics, contracted to something truer, leaner. People kept their jobs. Some people didn't. Olivia kept her chair, but she sat in it differently. Less like a throne, more like a desk. There were apologies without qualifiers. There were thank yous with eye contact. There were mornings when Olivia woke to texts that simply said, "We stayed employed." There were nights when she didn't wake at all, because for the first time in months, sleep came when called. One evening, when the sky over the river burned the color of old pennies, Olivia stood on Ethan's stoop while Lily taught Jake's old dog to sit for exactly 1 cube of cheddar. She looked strange there, and also not strange at all. "You were right," she said, not looking at him. "Outcomes beat funerals. I like outcomes where nobody writes our names in flowers," he said. They were quiet a moment, the kind of quiet that doesn't need to be narrated. Then Olivia turned to him with a smile that didn't have edges. "You know, you never asked me why I said it." That first moment, Don't tell. I figured the list would be long. It was short, she said. For once. I didn't mean, don't tell the world. I meant, don't tell me it's nothing. Don't tell me to go back to work and pretend. I couldn't bear that. Ethan thought of the black sedan, the men with eyes like ice, the numbers that turned into cathedrals. He thought of Lily's hand finding his in a room full of glass. I don't do pretending, he said. I do wires and truth. They both need a clean path. She laughed the kind of laugh that meant the next hour might include dinner or a plan or a confession, but whatever it included would be real. Lily whooped from the yard. He sat. Did you see? He sat. We saw, Olivia called back, and her voice carried something that wasn't exhaustion or armor. It carried a beginning. They didn't call it anything, not yet. They went on making lunches and share prices and small, necessary promises. But sometimes, when the crosswalk light blinked white, Ethan would reach without thinking, and Olivia would be there, and the city would step sideways in the right direction, and nobody would have to say a thing. Because some secrets are just choices not to make noise. And some stories work out when the right people tell the truth, at the right time, to the right ears. The rest, the menace, the angles, the men with cold eyes fade like bumper scratches under new paint. Don't tell, she had said. He had told, in the only way that mattered. And the world had listened.